Hello everybody. Today we need to have a discussion about the Ute. How's it going everyone? Welcome back. My name's Andrew and this is the Make It and Break It YouTube channel. I'm currently sitting on the front of our Project Ute Chrysler 300C where we need to have a bit of a discussion. So the idea with this project was to take a salvage car. This one was purchased off Copart, but take a salvage car and turn it into a Ute style build where we chop off the back half, put a truck bed on it, and then we get to use it taking motorcycles to track days and getting materials for our builds and stuff like that. Problems have started to creep in though. We have tried to get this thing licensed, and there's a video on the entire process 4 or 5 times at this point, and it has either had major mechanical issues that we've had to fix, or it has a lingering nebulous emissions issue where the car thinks it's idling too high even though it isn't. Now, I'm normally not one to give up on projects. I tend to follow things through even when I'm not supposed to. But this thing is making life hard. So it is not street legal right now, which means I can't really park it on the street, which is where I'd like to park it so I can get cars and motorcycles in and out of my one-car garage. But I can't do that, and the work that we have coming up this winter is a lot of fab work that's going to require the garage. I'm going to be building a complete roll cage in our RX-8, probably modifying a lot of suspension to fit rally wheels and such like that, as well as, fabricating complete rear subframes and crash bars and probably whole suspension setups for the R6. And that stuff seems to be more in the spirit of what I wanted for this channel. It's weird motorsports fabrications and that sort of thing. So this thing kind of just gets in the way in a way that's not useful, and I probably won't be able to get to it in 6 months. And that's a lot of time spent moving this car out of the way to get a motorcycle out and moving it back in real quick so it's not on the street, or moving it out of the way, get the car out, RX-8 out, put the Scion in, put it back in, put it back. It's a lot of shuffling for essentially no value for you guys or for me. So I think we're gonna end up calling it on this project for now. I'm not giving up on the Ute build. I'm probably just giving up on this Ute build. We'll pick another one sometime soon when we have either more garage space, or I'm out of major fabrication projects and it's time for the next project. Because really, if something's just sitting around and not being used and doesn't have an end use, there's not a whole lot of reason to keep it. So it just clutters up your space when you could have that space for something else. And that is kind of where we sit with this project. However, we do want to take a couple things off this car before we let it go to some junkyard or something like that. And that is, well, probably the most important part of any project. This car has a Gen 3 5.7 Hemi, makes 345 horsepower and some amount of torque, 380, 330, I don't know, something like that. It's actually a pretty good engine, and people have used these engines in blocks and lots of cool builds, and we've got a couple build designs in mind for future parts of this channel that would benefit greatly from a nice V8 like this. So we want to harvest it. That presents a couple problems. One, I'm pretty sure this engine will not fit out the top of this car in my garage. The engine, 26 inches tall, oil pan to top of the valve cover, and the lift gives me, I don't know, another 10 inches or something like that when we're lifting this thing up, and I'm pretty sure that will not make it out of this thing in the garage. So we're gonna have to go pull this thing the old-fashioned race car way, which is actually go remove this front support here. So that would be this bar that runs out this way and actually just yank this thing out the front. So that's one problem we're gonna have to cover. The next problem is where to keep it. So we're in the garage. You see our Doritos Locos project is in here, and it's one of the shorter projects we have. It's basically going to be the shortest project car we could work on in this garage, and there's not a whole lot of space here. This is a big thing that's going to have to go away here, because this is in the way of me accessing all my tools and working on bikes and such like that. We're really at a space premium, so taking my foldable engine stand, rolling it out here, because that's the only place that thing will deploy, and storing an engine on it for 6 months or a year, or how long it takes us to get to that project. It's just not an ideal situation for us from a storage perspective. Which means our engine stand that we currently have can't be used to store that engine. So this out here is our storage and workshop area. So you can see it's mostly storage and not particularly organized right now. But this is where the engine has to go in order for me to keep that garage workable. This is our engine stand over here. You see the deployable legs. If I deploy the legs, they essentially take up this entire walkway, even if I deployed it and rotate it in whatever direction. So this thing is not, which means I gotta store the engine somewhere over here. So right now, I don't know if you can see, yeah, you probably can. Back here behind the bike is my extra rotary engine and transmission for the RX-8. And here I got some spare broken parts I just haven't taken to the dump yet. But there's actually a bunch of space underneath this counter to keep stuff out of the way. Currently there's boxes of just random decorations sitting under there. But that'd be a perfect space to store an engine. And that's kind of what we want to do. So, hello Joe. Good morning. How are you feeling today? Yeah? Yeah? Happy puppy? You happy puppy today? There's so many spiders in here. Anyway, so the ideal place to store this engine is actually underneath this table. However, I'm going to show you something that makes that particularly difficult. Most engine stands, or engine trolleys, or engine carts hold the engine quite high, relatively speaking, off the ground, because they don't want to like hit the ground and have you be able to run over some minor stuff on the ground and stuff like that. But our engine is already 26 inches tall, and the bottom of this table clears about 35 inches, which only gives us, 8 or 9 inches of clearance off the top of our engine that can actually hold, where a mount can actually hold it up. So pretty much everything on the market, except for one that someone builds, but I'll show you guys a picture of that in a minute. Pretty much everything on the market holds the engine quite a lot higher than that. Which kind of brings us to our video today, which is designing a new engine stand for our 5.7 liter Hemi that's going to come out of the Chrysler. So at this point, this is going to be a computer-based thing from here on out. So I'm going to go back in the computer and I'll see you guys there. Alright, so this brings us to the computer. Got it up right now on one of the rolling engine cradles, trolley stands, sorts of things. This one, as you can see, is kind of just like a couple adjustable arms that come up off of like a main center cradle here. This is made of like L-channel tooling, L-channel brackets and stuff like that. And there's some square brackets in here. So something like this, while affordable, is not exactly what we're looking for. This next setup, this is from Speedway Motors. They do a lot of cool stands. And you'll see there's a few setups. Most of these setups are actually for small block Chevy, big block Chevy, LS's, that sort of thing. And they've got some mobile ones, like this one down here, or this one, this Chevy V8 cradle that have casters on them. as well as some non-mobile ones where if you're just gonna like set it down for a while and move around the forklift, something like that, this would be fine. But no one really makes one of these except for someone on eBay makes something that's pretty similar to this setup, this Speedway LS or the GM rolling LS stand. But I'd have to pay $130, $140 plus shipping to get one of these off of eBay. And we can make one of those. We have all the fabrication equipment, and it sounds like a fun project to go make a rolling stand pretty similar to this, because this has the benefit of allowing us to access the oil pan down below and everything, and allow us to work on our engine without putting it back on the stand. So if you're going to do something like this, first thing you want to do is try and find as good dimensions as possible on your engine. Luckily, the Gen 3 Hemis are fairly popular nowadays for swaps into older Mopar style cars. So Hot Rod Magazine actually did a little feature on the clearances between the Hemi Gen 3, which is this column of information here, versus your 426 Hemis, your 392 Hemis, and then a bunch of your other big blocks and small blocks and slant sixes that'll show up in a lot of your Mopar cars and all of your nice old muscle car type stuff. And it's really handy because it gives you things like this A distance is really handy. That's your front and back distance on your block. This S distance gives you to your mounting lugs. That's your engine mount pattern. And then you've got some heights over on this side. So everything here is done to the crank center line, which makes sense because that's going to be essentially the center line of your drivetrain coming out of the engine. You got to set that height correctly. One thing to note about this drawing, and I didn't have any blueprints available because blueprints would have been perfect for making this sort of thing. I would have cut some of the guessing, is that it doesn't give you the height from the bottom of the mounting lugs. It does give you the distance from the rear. Notice here you got a rear distance here, and that is 12.5 inches on one side, and then 13.5 inches on the other side. So this mounting, it's because the way the V is offset, so it's set on the same part of the cylinder, but the cylinders themselves are offset slightly. So that's why this is in a different location on one side versus the other. What it doesn't do is give you the height of the center line of this mount from the bottom of the sump, which would be perfect for setting up a stand like this one, right? So, so this height right here is pretty handy to know. So what we actually did is we went in here and we did what is it? 3rd Gen Hemi. And you can go in here to like Eastwood Company or something like that. And this is a 392 stroker flat top. All of the Gen 2 Hemi V8 blocks are the same. They just change stroke and bore a little bit, at least as far as this is concerned. So you can actually go in here, and if we get in close, something like this, you go look at this picture, and you can see that these mounting lugs here are actually shown, and one of the dimensions that we know we have is the height of this. We can get the height of the oil pan flange here from the bottom of the sump. And so that's going to help us set our clearance from the bottom, as well as make sure that we're not going too high. So the easiest way to do something like that is actually go into SolidWorks. I'll start a new thing here and show you what to do. If you're using a different CAD program, most of them have a similar feature. Sketch, we'll create a sketch here. We'll create it on the front plane. And then actually there's a tool in SolidWorks, so you go into your sketch tools, and it's called Sketch Picture. And you can throw in a picture like this. And so it's going to go in at whatever scale bitmap it wants to. Maybe. Hopefully we don't crash this. Notice this is huge right now. But this is a picture to scale, and it's a pretty close side-on view. You'll notice this is supposed to be, if you're looking at an engine, this is a flat surface, and this is a flat surface. So these are angled a little bit, which means essentially every picture, if you're going to use a picture like this and not a diagram or schematic, every picture is going to have a little parallax because the camera lens is very small. The camera lens is like the size of this, area, and so it's catching everything. You're getting a little bit of fisheye going on pretty much with every side picture. This is why if you were going to do something like try and use photos to measure everything on this block, you'd actually take several photos from every angle and then use software to stitch them together so that you can account for that fisheye by catching everything from multiple angles. But something that looks pretty close right here. And so what you actually do is go, yep, sketch picture looks fine. And then my suggestion, if you can do this, is actually draw over the picture. Let's say we're gonna draw something like, I'm gonna draw that, and move this so that it's, oh gosh, why are you doing this to me? Computer, delete. Move it so it's on this edge here, and then you draw another center line somewhere over here. Make sure they're vertical. And then put that on that edge here. When I was doing this for real, I was a little bit more careful with where I placed these lines to try and get everything as exact as possible. And then one more center line just essentially for drawing purposes. We're gonna put it right along here. Quick little thing, we're going to extend entities, extend that, and that's good. And then, so what you can do then is take, if you zoom in a bunch, you can actually find the center line. Notice these are off axis, but you pick something that looks pretty close to the center of your hole and draw a 90-degree line straight down to that construction line we made earlier. And then you can even do this, pick what looks like about center line of that hole and draw a 90-degree down that center line. And then so these can give you a couple things, but what it can essentially let you do is triangulate the center points of, and you'll notice the camera parallax is going to get us here, because look at this, we're at the center of this hole here and this one's not lined up, and this would be the same up here, right? Which is not ideal, and some of these nubs might also be offset. These are some of the things that we have to just assume that these are pointing straight out of the block and they're not offset or anything, and all that sort of stuff. But some of the camera parallax will get us here, but we can take those measurements and we'll just toss a measurement on this right now. We don't care what this number is right now. We're not using this to set anything. And then we'll get a measurement over here, and then we'll get a measurement here. So what we use this measurement, this is the block front to back, pretty close, right? So the idea is we can scale this entire sketch based on this measurement block front to back and compare it to our block measurements here that were taken on an actual block. So the rear bell housing to the front of the block is 24.5 inches, according to this right here. So what we'd actually go do in this sketch is, yep, that all looks good, cool, and we'll get done with this sketch, and then we'll go in here and sketch tools. We'll modify this sketch, and we will actually scale this. So this is a scale factor here. And we're going to scale this on a scale of 24.5 divided by whatever this front to back measurement is on our current thing, so 51.66. And if you do it right, we'll close this, rebuild that, and then we're gonna, why am I doing this? We're just going to suppress this background here. We open up this sketch again. You see that this front to back measurement that we just took has been scaled down to our normal measurement, and we get two measurements for verticals to the center line of our holes, and that's 3.7 inches to the bottom one and 6.32 inches to the top one. These are probably a little bit off, but note that it's even though our spreadsheet of information says the bolt holes are 3.5 inches essentially apart, but it's a 4 bolt hole pattern by 4.5 inches approximately by 3.5 inches. This is less, but we're catching 45 degrees of angle approximately. So these heights help us identify where the center of this piece is. And when you do the math, it's about 4 to 4.5 inches right in here where this piece will center line. So you can take like so that's 5 inches there, right? We'll just make that dimension. So you can get these heights. It's approximate. It's actually, I think, a little bit lower than that. But you can take that, and so that's your height from your oil pan to your center line of your mounting fixture. And then you can go start sketching up things. So what we did here is we created a sketch. And we had to do several different planes. This is like your main bar down here, and then we located the center line of our plane of our mount bolt area up here, and we created a plane and a sketch up in here, and then we actually created ourselves something here. One thing to note, if you're going to build something like this, if you're going to build something like this, you don't want to draw a line straight from the center line of your mounting part here to the center line of this, because that's not actually how you're going to build it, which is why we drew our line like we did. So we'll get this back up once the computer catches up. We actually offset the line by 1 inch, which is the distance from the center line of our tube to the outside of our tube, and we're planning on using 2x2 square tube in this construction. So we created one line here and one line here, and then I'm going to unsuppress a couple things here. We're going to make this visible, and we're going to make this visible again. and it lets you come up with something like this. So this is our final design. Note we had to mess around with this tube location a bunch because we want to have enough clearance to get a bolt in this bottom. This looks like it'll be enough, but I mean, we'll see when we actually do it. If this doesn't work well enough, we'll just have to keep adjusting it until it works. But note, so we've got this, and we've set some materials so we can do some analysis on it, strength analysis, and then the only other assumption is we made the assumption that this mounting plate needs to be at 45 degrees from the vertical. So that's where we set that. That's pretty much the only assumption we made here. The other thing is, what's useful about this is if you look over on the left here, it's got a bunch of things. I created some welds in here so I could know about how much length of weld I'm gonna make, but it can also give you a cut list. So if you don't have the ability to cut material yourself, you can actually use most CAD programs. SolidWorks does this. I'm pretty sure Autodesk 360 has a feature that will allow you to do this. You can actually have this program spit out a list of cuts and angles, and it keeps track of all of these angles that we're making. So you can actually just send that to your metal supply shop and have them make the cut. And then all you're doing essentially is assembling everything together and putting the welds on if you're going to do that yourself. But so we're going to actually fabricate this ourselves, but this will let us do estimate some lines, so we can go into like we can estimate how long this piece needs to be. This to this is 11.41 inches, right? So you need 11-ish inches here, and then this piece is 24 inches. We can also measure this piece here. So this is measure that edge to that edge. And that's 9 and change inches. So if we're going to make two sides of this, and the only real difference is we might adjust where this is located on the runner on the other side. If we're going to make two sides of this, we have 24 inches and 12 inches and 10 inches. So we're looking at 12, 24, math, 36, 40, 20, 20, 34, 46. 46 is the answer, everyone. Looking at 46 inches of tube per side. So you're looking at 92 inches. You're basically going to want a 96 or 108 inch piece of tube. So that can help you go to the metal supply store, so you're not going to go there and show up short or buy too much, because having too much extra is just a waste of money unless you're going to use it to practice or what have you. One other thing I did want to mention while I was doing weld beads, I just wanted to show you guys what you can use this if you're trying to get a little bit more fancy with your stuff. So I created a few different weld beads here. Show you this one. And so I think you can do this in Fusion 360. You've been able to do this for a while in this. And what you can do, you can specify a weld and your weld path and your actual weld size. And that'll give you a total linear weld length. In this case, it's 7.5 inches. And if you're trying to go through production or going into like production of this, let's say I was actually deciding, hey, for some side income, I'm going to build a bunch of these and sell them out there for some reason. You can actually use this weld length plus your fillet weld size. In this case, I specified 1/8 of an inch fillet weld. This just for kicks and giggles. It's probably not what I'll actually end up welding it to. You can actually estimate the amount of weld wire that goes into each one of these if you're trying to do a cost-benefit analysis for that thing. So just a cool tip. I thought it would be fun and interesting for those of you who care about kind of the production side of things. So this is pretty much our version of those engine storage racks. These holes here do mount our casters through them. Right now they're modeled as like a single all-thread piece. This I'll adjust as we go based on the type of casters we end up wanting. But yeah, that's our new mount design. So that's it for this episode, everyone. My name's Andrew. This is the Make It Break It YouTube channel. If you like this video, hit like. If you have comments, questions, concerns, if you want to tell me I'm being stupid for building something or giving up on a project, that's fine. I read all your comments. Throw them in the comment section down below. And if you like videos like this, check out the rest of our channel. Subscribe, hit that bell icon, because then you get notified when we put out a new video. Again, thanks for watching, everyone. My name's Andrew, and I've got to go rush off and finish packing because there's some shenanigans afoot. We'll catch you later.